Hello.
I'll lose mine if I take it off.
I'm Scott Traylor, and we got a little informal group of virtual world developers, experts, community experts here to talk about, just for a short bit, what's going on, what's got their eye, and we're going to go around the room and do some introductions. And first we have the very famous Izzy Niece.
Hi.
Alrighty, and where are you now?
I'm at, I actually almost said Fight My Monster, but I'm with Metaverse Mod Squad now. Woohoo!
Yay! Alright. Joy?
I am Joy Pogorny, and I'm with National Geographic Animal Jam.
Great. And Nick?
I'm Nick Mitham, CEO and co-founder of K0.
Great. David?
I'm David Hollifield. I am the creative director and founder of Interfuel Interactive Agency.
Excellent. And Chris?
I'm Chris Preeb, President and CEO of Two Hat Security.
Excellent, excellent. So, like I said, very informal here. I didn't notice the shaky camera holding. What are you seeing out there in the virtual world space for kids right now that has your attention? Anyone? Alrighty.
Seeing brands move into the space. Brand new virtual worlds have kind of always been popular. Some have failed, some have done really, really well. Brands are now kind of looking around the space and been watching and kind of moving into the market, so that's the key trend. User-generated content might come up on a few other people's discussions.
Yeah.
Really, really popular, very, very engaging, tricky to moderate sometimes, but powerful for brands if they kind of get the right approach to it.
Are you guys doing UGC stuff? Yep.
Yeah, we've had quite a bit of UGC in the form of mostly images, and we do this thing called howls, which are kind of like a ticker tape shout out in the game. But we're going to be amping it up this year and doing a little bit more. I want to work on more text-based stuff, so stories, poems, that sort of thing. And we're hopefully going into video. But I mean, the whole entire world is UGC because they can create their spaces and they can have their own little parties and things like that.
Excellent, excellent. And David, are you doing any creative expression or UGC now, or your latest virtual world endeavors?
Well, we're hearing a lot of how is UGC going to be educational? We've been having a lot of discussions with potential clients about how is it going to be educational? How is it going to add some value other than just gaming?
We do, actually, on Animal Jam, we've been doing this thing called the News Crew. So trying to teach very basic journalistic kind of skill sets. So we give them a topic like bring in facts about foxes, and so they'll have to write facts about foxes and then get a screenshot from the game where they do that. And we do that on a regular basis so that it's become a regular occurrence in our world, and we're getting a lot of really great feedback because it's slightly educational, but at the same time very much a free time activity of just, go out and find facts.
It's funny you guys are talking about kind of a more specific play pattern because, with Metaverse we work with a lot of different clients coming in, similar. In terms of virtual worlds, for your earlier question, I would say we've seen more European growth with virtual worlds as of the last year, and maybe not as much innovation in virtual worlds, I would say, pretty much in the United States, with the exception of the hybrids with the consoles, like with Disney Infinity coming out and Skylanders really rocking it out.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I haven't personally seen anything that have been, over the top. But to the UGC point, there's sites like Storybird that's coming out that is really their whole thing is to engage kids in writing and building and creating content, but integrating parents and teachers and so on into that process. And I think that's been really interesting. People getting more into poignant play, and kind of there's like I feel that there's everyone's holding their breath to see what comes with the next virtual world or what the next. I don't know. You guys may disagree with that, but that's kind of the way I've seen it.
I think the European market is about 9 months behind the US.
Yes.
Although my air miles don't reflect that because I'm still kind of over here quite a lot. But I think US marketers are slightly more kind of adventurous, and the market, and they've got bigger budgets, I guess, as well. But there are an awful lot of European, like Central Europe, continental European companies who've been watching the space. And
and they just seem to be blossoming out right now, and it's an interesting way because, like you said, it does seem to be a little bit behind, but has gained more steam.
Yeah, I wonder. I had this conversation with is it Peter Johnson at Dubbit? Is that his last name? Are you familiar with him? I mean, he's one of the...
Peter Robinson.
Robinson, I'm
Pete.
sorry, not Johnson.
Ginger Pete.
He, okay, you got that there. And we were comparing notes about where we're seeing growth and what he's seeing in the UK and what I'm seeing here in the US. And one of the interesting things that he cited was seeing education growth in the UK. In virtual worlds and MMOs, but I was kind of surprised because it's like, well, I see that as a possibility here in the U.S., but I don't actually see the traction yet.
You know that the unfortunate thing is that parents want it as a PR point, but they don't want to actually follow up on it as kind of the actual meat of the education. So they want to hear that their kid could be learning, their kid is seeing things that are educational or learning kind of focused. But when you follow through and say, oh, do you want to see reports of it? Or how much do you want to know? They're like,
Yeah.
Can't be bothered.
But
I
then
paid my
found
money.
with British parents, they are a lot less concerned than US parents in terms of what their kids are doing.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that.
Things like mummy bloggers as well isn't really a concept that we've got in the UK. But I think American parents and North American parents, they're really, I think maybe the media almost overhypes the issue that the safety issue with virtual worlds.
At FOSI back in, was it November? Vodafone put out this glossy magazine about digital parenting, which was fantastic. And I thought, and it was obviously very Eurocentric and definitely UK-centric. But the get involved, here's how you get involved. I know it sounds pedantic, but you need to do these sorts of things. It was a really great kind of just brass tacks. This is what you should be doing as an online parent. And I really think, it's definitely going to be one of the soapboxes that I keep stepping on top of this year. We're doing a parent video series. We're really amping up our parent controls on our site and really working on all the parent social media channels because of COPPA and just because of ethics. Parents need to be more engaged because we have requirements on us from a legislative and from a brand point of view that say that they need to be involved, but they're not as involved as, practically they're not actually as involved as they need to be. So I really think it's about parent awareness this year. That's going to be one of my main focuses.
It's interesting what you said with mommy bloggers and going back to parent awareness. Actually, in the UK, I found that most parents talk about safety as a kind of once something's happened to them and their kids or credit cards have been, and then they don't talk about it anywhere else except for online news sources in the comments. I keep seeing kickback, and that's where all the kind of bees nests and bees hives are of activity with, frustration from parents is that's the location, which to me is interesting because you only see the reports in the newspapers about the fear tactics.
Yeah.
So there's a whole educational opening for adults out of the UK. In the US, it seems to be a mishmash of who wants to listen and who doesn't.
Yeah, I know the toy world has always had this problem, and especially with educational stuff, that is the parent really involved, and that they oftentimes their involvement is up until just after the purchase, and then they feel good that they've made their purchase and I've done good as a parent. But it's interesting, I hadn't thought about from a COPA perspective how this could be the new conversation in the next year. It's like, well, yeah, you weren't involved before, but guess what?
Yeah. You're being expected to be involved on a very, very detailed level with your child's online activities. If you're not following through, we need you there because a lot of our stuff is predicated on you having that kind of involvement that you're, I don't want to say pretending to have, but idealistically having.
So how do you get the parents involved then?
I think it's a parent awareness thing. I think it's actually we all have to work toward getting the parent, and maybe it's going on the Today Show. Maybe
that's what I think. It's gotta. We gotta involve the news better. We've got. Remember in the '80s when they did the "This is your brain, it's your brain on drugs" thing? It's forever ago, and I still
service.
think of it.
Yeah.
Or the fear tactics with seatbelts. I don't think that's any different. I think we should be. Kids and advertising, the best advertising source is the news or is the television. Why isn't the same for the parent? Parents are watching it too, even if it's in the background.
But I mean, the bullying verbiage is there, and we're seeing ad counsel, and we're seeing PSAs on that. Maybe that's the pivot point that we can use. We got people's attention with bullying. Thankfully, we're not doing so much stranger danger, predator stuff anymore. and we've pivoted to this bullying, maybe the next pivot's going to be, hey, let's just have meaningful relationships with, that are online, and you can have positive things. It doesn't always have to be about fear, but there are some parenting points that you need to make sure that you're following up
If you don't
on.
use fear, then you really have to
No.
drag it out of the
Yeah.
parent. Like, please be involved.
I agree.
So we really got to think how we're going to get the parents involved. Maybe it's achievement in what the child's doing online.
I was just going to ask, with you guys particularly, and Chris, you've talked to some people and
Yeah.
worked in this space. Do you see any companies coming to you for strategy? Because I've had this, with Metaverse. We have people coming in trying to ask us different ways within the games or digital experiences or even within the social media of trying to build it out for the user, right? So they're not getting hit over the head, but they're kind of being brought breadcrumb through it. Are you seeing that at all? I don't see it as much as I did a year ago, but it's starting to pick up again.
I'm not seeing much of it, to be
No?
honest.
Yeah.
Now I'm seeing something slightly different. In that I'm coming from a Canadian context, and what we're seeing is a rise of the homeschool movement. That parents are no longer trusting the public school system. They want to be able to have control of their kids. Now it's still small, but it's growing. And so there is this growing interest that parents want to be more involved. I think it's stemmed out of the cyberbullying and the bullying. But there's also, that's the negative side that drives it. We can also do the positive side. So we mentioned achievements. So if parents can go and look at what their kids are doing and then give them points, give them free things, kind of push towards it, then the kid's going to be going to the parents and saying, hey, have you looked at my account? As opposed to, oh, please don't look at it. They'll be like, can you go check out my account and see if you can give me that reward thing that...
But that will only work up to a certain age, I guess, because
Right.
I've got clients who want to sort of try and link parents with the kids and achievements, but once kids get to a certain age, the last thing that they want
Is their parents.
is their kids, are their parents, overseeing or interacting.
But frankly, I mean, if you get down to it, those lessons should be taught before they make that transition into, I don't want my parents in my life anymore.
Yeah.
So, and
All
we've
right.
been talking, a lot about kind of leveraging the iOS space and the mobile space in order to get the parent communication there. So getting them to the site to work on the parent, controls has always been a hurdle, but they've got their phone on them. They're checking their Facebook all day long. So maybe those are the avenues that they're already there. You've got a captive audience.
Yeah.
Figuring out some way to leverage those tactics, but in a medium and a channel that they're already there at.
This reminds me a little bit, I don't know if you guys remember a company called Face Chips, where they did parental communication on a regular and frequent basis. In fact, if one might argue that, it was like every day kind of thing, and parents didn't want it, and it's just like, well, what is the right balance? If we're trying to bring the parents in, educate them, and then let them know, hey, there's good stuff, whether good or bad, and hopefully just the good,
Going back to the parents, it seems that there needs to be some ways of engaging them. And so what I am seeing is that there's a trend that people are trying to teach kids to learn good digital skills. Right? I've seen several companies working on that right now, where they're trying to put them in a situation where they can grow and they can experience things and they can teach them along the way. So when kids make mistakes, they can guide them a little bit, or they can get involved with the parents. And so then the parents basically, in some cases, maybe even get conversation things like, here's a topic, have you considered talking to your kid about bullying, cyberbullying? And it gives them resources. And I don't think anyone's solved the problem yet, but a lot of people are thinking in that space. And I'm excited to see what we're going to come up with. But
I think there's an incumbent issue as well, though, is that the tech gets, isn't always moving and it's always progressing, and that so the parents are getting scared of the technology. The kids are embracing it, and the kids are, saving with UGC, the kids are pushing the technology forward and faster in all these different directions. But then you've got the parents who are still, we've got some family friends, and they've got a son who's about 12. Up in his bedroom, he's running Minecraft servers, and he's hosting games, and he looks like CTU in his bedroom. And his parents don't even use email.
Yeah.
Well, no.
And they haven't got a.
And I've often said, that there's that famous, oh, my kids know so much more about the cell phone, they know so much more about the games than I do, and I'm like, you would never brag that your children know more about sex or drugs or alcohol. Why are you bragging about a lack of your parenting knowledge? Don't brag about it. If you don't know about it, that's fine. Let's just start at not bragging about the fact that your child knows more about that, and then let's move toward maybe inching toward their level of knowledge, at least knowing the context. You know, it'd be great if every parent sat down and played the games that their kids are playing. But if you could just know what game they're playing, that would be a really great place to start.
Maybe that conversation has to start with the kid, the kid who's playing it, bringing the parent into the environment, into the experience of the game, and maybe like going back to what you were saying, or the questions we had, like maybe it's the child that has to go to the parent, like with a report card. Here's what's going on, and you have maybe prompt the child to start that conversation rather than waiting for the parent to come pry into their lives.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk, I mean, I get thousands of customer service tickets and calls on a weekly basis on Animal Jam, and when we actually do engage and talk to a parent, they're thanking us for the level of
education,
and they're thanking us for how aware and how proactive and all the things that we're doing for them. They just don't know, but I mean, we're doing everything within our power, and we're trying and brainstorming more ideas, but it starts with that parent, and unfortunately a lot of those are like negative situations that they...
And just the tip of the iceberg
Exactly,
as well.
and they don't call us, they don't reach out to us until something negative happens, and then we can bring them around and make them realize the holistic thing that is happening with their child in the game and what our role in it is. But they have to make that first step, and unfortunately right now it's the fear tactic, it's the negative things, like something happens in the game, the child gets disciplined, they're like, why was my child banned? And you're like, well, let me explain to you what little Johnny was doing. So.
But on a positive note, there's another trend that's happening, and that is the increase of giving. So we saw it in a large scale with Club Penguin when they did the Coins for Change, gave away $1 million and I think 1.5 or $2 million in the following years. And then that has created a lot of other interest from other companies have been asking about that and wanting to implement the same. And kids themselves have been really excited about, hey, how can I do some stuff online that ends up resulting in real world change?
Right.
And I am seeing that pick up and gain a lot of traction. And kids want to be that social changers, which is a way of taking kids that were maybe just their game was to make a mess, and now they can change it to their game can be to change the world. It's a bit idealistic to say that, but I think there's a trend.
We work with the National Geographic missions area where we have funds that we're donating funds to big cats and stuff like that. We get really, really great feedback from the kids. We did a conservation awareness kind of campaign inside of the world. We, retired our monkey avatar for a while and then brought it back. But we're able to talk about extinction, conservation, and that sort of thing. So there are opportunities there, but again, you have to be able to have the channels to the parents to get them more involved. It's super easy to engage kids. Those of us who have been doing this for a while kind of know how to keep them engaged, but the parent one, I think that's the new black box in the middle of the table that we're all...
And there's no right answer, and
Exactly.
there's no catch-all solution.
Exactly.
So that's the...
Well, you know how the request goes. It's like, well, I want, the initial audience is 6 to 9-year-old girls, and secondarily, if I can get 3 to 6 is great in the toy space or some higher age. But it's never like, oh, and the parents. Remember, they're the secondary audience.
There's another trend that I'm excited about, and that's the idea of story. I think that the games and the worlds are finally maturing. So instead of just being like, oh, here's a world, just whatever, it actually has story. And we've gone beyond go collect 2 acorns and come back and win an achievement to this whole, because the power of story goes back to the campfire in Africa and those places. They get around the story, they'd all hear it, but that would become the ethos of the people. It would shape who they are. They would become that character. And so when we engage in a virtual world, we have such an opportunity to teach people about what it means to be forgiven or to forgive or to the consequences of hate and revenge or anything, or being standing up, being bold, being strong. Like they can engage that actual story and they can become, absorb part of that personality. Very cool. I'm excited about that. I'm starting to see it finally mature. Do you guys think the same? Have you seen that?
I'm hearing. I made a note yesterday. I underlined it twice. I'm hearing a lot of times storytelling. I heard a lot of that yesterday.
Yeah, transmedia is coming up a lot more. It's been, that's not a new word.
It's overused though.
I agree. There's a lot of words that are overused, but it is interesting to start hearing about story because it is a luxury. A lot of places will start. It's hard to have a quality story, and they're not. Good writers are not a dime a dozen, but
Yeah, it's very hard. Well, this was just the beginning. This is part 1, and we said, oh, we're just only going to do this for like 20, 30 minutes, and now we got to go support Izzy. And thank you all, and hope you found it enjoyable. We'll do it again another time.